Those are the types of things that the team marketing people really get excited about. And then to inspire that team on an individual basis to communicate and make sure that they understand what they as an individual can do to become a major part in achieving that big goal. And then to give them the tools and the resources to allow them to go out there and give it a shot and to fail and succeed. It's like having that theme out there. For us at the Fresh Market, it was about becoming one of America's most loved brands. And a year later, after we went from worst to first, so the year before, the Fresh Market had been rated the worst company in America to work for. Not the worst grocery chain, but the entire world, the entire America, we were the worst company to work for. And then we had this audacious, big idea, big goal of becoming America's most loved brand. And a year later, we were voted in the USA Today poll as America's best supermarket.
Welcome to In Other Words, the podcast from Phrase, where we speak with leaders who are shaping the future of marketing, customer experience, and global growth. I'm your host, Jason Hemingway, CMO at Phrase, and today I'm joined by Kevin Miller. Now, Kevin's a seasoned marketing strategist and the former chief marketing officer at Fresh Market. He's got over 35 years leading marketing, advertising, and media for Fortune 100 companies, and he's driven amazing transformation in some global brands. His leadership at Fresh Market is kind of standout as one of the most impressive turnarounds in retail history in America. So Kevin recently was named by USA Today as one of the top CMOs to watch. So I'm really glad that he's coming on the podcast. He's continuing to influence how brands think about loyalty, personalizations, and scaling customer connections. So I'd like to welcome Kevin to the podcast. Kevin, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm doing great, Jason. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad you could join us and fit us in your hectic schedule. Now you've firmly retired, but we're going to talk a bit more about your career as it was and what you got up to, and try and give our audience, a view on some of the things that you've done and maybe some insights into how you sort of scale businesses and grow them globally. And I think before we get into your specific experience, let's talk a little bit about your kind of professional history. If you could just start by telling us, and we ask lots of our guests about this, about your career journey and the key moments in that journey and kind of what it shaped you into.
So I got into advertising after 6 years in the Army as an Army officer following my graduation from West Point in the mid-'80s. I was fortunate to have been recruited by Leo Burnett, at the time one of the world's top 5 ad agencies. And I was lucky enough to get to work on the national McDonald's business, where I learned from the best brand marketing team, the McDonald's marketing team, and the best ad agency. And that's where I fell in love with marketing and advertising and retail. The importance of things like thinking like a brand, but acting like a retailer, putting the customer first, and always driving for insights and ideas and innovation in all that you do in this wonderful career of marketing and advertising. That led to a series of senior positions at working for Coca-Cola. I was a VP of marketing for PepsiCo Yum Brands, or Pizza Hut, CMO for Disney, ABC, the radio division, which got me into entertainment and media, and eventually became the CMO for Natural Grocers and the Fresh Market, which got me into grocery retail over the last 8 years. So a lot of practicing around consumers and brand and retail and all those areas, entertainment, experience. This really allows you to be creative and actually see the results of the marketing impact on a daily basis, transactional basis. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you start off in like really massive brands like Coca-Cola and McDonald's. I mean, that kind of have that, I'd almost say they have that brand equity behind them already, right? So you kind of learn the ropes, which is a really good place to learn the ropes, right? And those ones, and especially on the ad agency. But then you kind of move into the kind of B2C grocery sort of area. And what were the biggest gaps or opportunities you saw from your experience in the other, B2C brands you worked in before into, the Fresh Market and the grocer side of things? What were the gaps that you sort of saw?
Yeah. So, I looked at the Fresh Market as being like my grand swan song. after 30, 35 years of learning from the biggest brands and the smartest people in the world. There was an opportunity to, turn the fresh market around. It was a private equity at the point that we took over in 2020. And the idea was to, turn the brand around. So the biggest gap was that the fresh market had a, terrific brand DNA, but the marketing was terrible. The company historically did not believe in brand marketing or investing in a strategic approach to marketing. And the new CEO that was to lead the turnaround, Jason Potter, he absolutely believed in that. And that's what he felt was a key strategic anchor for turning the company around. At the time, the sales, the traffic, the margin, the market share were all negative and trending downward. So the gap was to really understand the customer, what problems that the fresh market was solving for that customer, and to implement innovative solutions to meet the needs of those customers. And so you always start with the customer. And then, we were very invisible and sleepy. We weren't doing anything to impact, what was becoming, obviously groceries is an extremely cluttered category. And there was a tremendous amount of diffusion in the marketplace. So marketing has moved to an enormous number of platforms, enormous number of digital and traditional media outlets. Like, where is all this stuff going? And so, we were nowhere in any of those things. So we needed to become very visible and more exciting to, stand out in a very cluttered category. So that's where we start.
You start with kind of that customer essence. Did you look at research? Was okay, let's get inside the customer's head in terms of their behavior, understand it. What was your sort of view on that?
100%. So there were some important things. So you start with the strategy. So the CEO had laid out a strategy that, a big vision that he wanted the fresh market to become, America's most loved brand. And I thought that was spectacular for a guy who was an operator, that he started with the brand, right, as being so important to the company's turnaround. And then a vision that was anchored in love, which is a very human emotion, right? The most powerful human emotion. So as for a marketer, that really turned me on. It got me very excited that, I had a CEO who believed in the brand and the love. And so my job was to, quantify that. And so we, engaged Morning Consult, who had a tracking study based on America's most loved brand. So if we were going to focus our strategy and our efforts against becoming America's most loved brand, we needed to quantify what were the elements of that. And the most loved brand index included the net promoter score, measuring the community impact of a brand, the favorability, and the trust factor. So we were able to quantify where we stood in terms of being one of America's most loved brands and also the competition. And then we were able to create programs and processes and products and experiences to deliver and be able to measure that with a tracking study that provided data every day. We were able to, we had a internal customer tracking. Only our customers would fill out, those kind of questionnaires you get with your receipt and we check out. And so we understood what our customer was saying. We understood what our brand health metrics were. And we looked at our T-log data, the actual transactions along with the sales, and began to create some real insights in terms of how we're going to move the needle within the business.
One of those programs that you developed while you were there based on that kind of data and that insights, which I think sometimes the consumer goods market has a lot of data, transactional data that maybe B2B markets don't actually have, do they? It's more difficult to get that tangible, a point of sale data, I guess, is the point. But from that data, you built out what I was reading is, a very successful loyalty program, right? Which I don't know, 1 million members in just 7 months. I read somewhere. I don't know how true that is. I'll put that down there as a thing. But how did you design that, and what were the lessons around that that you rolled out?
Yeah, very excited to talk about that, and very proud of the program. So, the fresh market had gone 38 years without a loyalty program, and so we understood that data was very important to the company. But there has to be, a value exchange. So if you want more customer data, you have to be able to give them something in return, which was the loyalty program. So the opportunity was to, create a customized, loyalty program because based upon the new TFM brand strategy that we were launching that would provide a very powerful value exchange for that customer. We could then leverage that data to better serve our customers via highly curated catalog, the world's best fresh foods, provide them with a better value than they were getting, faster service, more convenient service, a more personal shopping experience. So we're not interested in buying a off-the-shelf loyalty program. We engaged Deloitte Consulting to research the best loyalty programs, best e-commerce programs from all categories from around the world. Hospitality, credit cards, shopping, e-com, everything. And then we took the best of the best features and functionalities, value props, reward structures, and designed several loyalty program concepts and constructs that talk to our customers and also our competitors' customers about which elements would make them visit the fresh market more often and spend more on their visits. And so we took the best of the best of those concepts and we force ranked them with our customers and built the ultimate loyalty experience from what our customers told us. And we said, well, if we could do these things, what would you think? And they said, man, if you can provide us with these very compelling programs, attributes, and value props, that would be the ultimate loyalty experience. So we named it the ultimate loyalty experience. It was like you fill the dreams. If you build it, they will come. And so when we launched that program, we went from 0 loyalty members to 1 million members in 7 months. Yeah.
And so there's I don't know if you've seen if it's made it across to you, but there's this debate on the efficacy of loyalty programs. I think, Byron Sharp and the Ehrenberg Bass Institute and kind of they're like loyalty programs over time, maybe don't make so much difference in terms of brand growth. But your one seems to sort of buck that trend in terms of, well, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it seems to have been really successful in building loyalty or repeat purchase and all of that kind of thing. Can you just give us your point of view on that, that it did help drive tangible brand growth and general business growth?
I'm not familiar with Brian Sharp and the EBI much, but I'm sure they do excellent work. The bottom line, Jason, is that there is no one size fits all loyalty program or strategy on how to leverage a loyalty program in your business. So at TFM, we, as I just explained, we did our homework up front. We researched all cohorts of the customer base. So we were aware that if you don't do the loyalty program right, it could cost you a lot of money and not be so successful. And so we partnered with our, the CFO and the financial teams, the financial analysts, and we did our homework and we looked up front, all the different cohorts within our customer base, the heavy users, the medium, the light spenders. We looked at frequent and infrequent visitors. We looked at non-TFM shoppers. We looked within the generational segmentation of our business, from the baby boomers to the Gen Xers to the Gen Zs, like what percentage of our business that these segments contribute, the high income, low income, regional segments, diverse. So we looked at cannibalization and other financial metrics. Based upon that, we model what type of lift we would need across these various segments to make the program successful and profitable for the fresh market. Well, and then from there, we said, well, what type of investment will we need in order to drive the lift across these KPIs that will result in us meeting our goals, our financial goals, and our traffic goals for the program. So we had a loyalty scoreboard of KPIs and it modeled the performance to a very detailed, very segmented element. We weren't taking any chances. And so across the board, we exceeded the loyalty KPIs upon launch. And importantly, we achieved over an 80% satisfied or highly satisfied rating from our loyalty members. Additionally, the program won the Association of National Advertisers Silver Reggie Award 2020-23, and that's given to marketing programs that are the most effective for making the cash register ring.
I love that, the Reggie.
Of course, there's always room for improvement, and I'm sure TFM is continuing to improve the program, but that incredible database now that they have with the over 2.5 million members in the program now is something that, continues to perform very well.
Yeah, and I think, the award-winning stuff, maybe that's great, but I guess that's based on efficacy of the program, right? And it seemed to be, as you said, every business is different. You understood your customers, and then you built the programs around that customer research and the data that you have, which is really,
And we
really
reverse
interesting.
engineered to make sure the financial performance and that we weren't hurting different segments of our business
Yeah.
through
Yeah,
the loyalty
good.
program, and we were able to measure exactly how it impacted all those different KPIs.
So taking that sort of a little bit step forward, you also speak about things like Gen AI and attribution and smarter personalization. Where do you see big opportunities for other businesses in today's world are a bit like where you've come from and the gaps that you assessed? What if you could sort of extrapolate out of the fresh market kind of world for anyone else listening? What do you see are those sort of opportunities that want to scale? Businesses want to scale, but still keep things personal. I think is the trick, isn't it? Still keep the customer in mind. We all want our businesses to grow, and I think sometimes you can be very, as a marketer, you can be very, I must hit the numbers, I must hit the numbers. But actually, what you really should have is that kind of obsessive culture of thinking about the customer and why you're fulfilling their needs or what they need to do.
There's always the same type of problems. It's finding the right customer, satisfying their needs. What problems are you trying to solve? How do you differentiate all those things? But the toolbox is getting very sophisticated, and of course AI is a game changer. And trying to figure that part, all that out. And personalization has always been about finding the right customer at the right time, with the right offer in the right way, so AI helps you with that. So the first step in all of this, again, is making sure you've done your homework and understanding your brand's DNA, your brand promise, the health of your brand, differentiation in order to have a very compelling brand story to communicate. And then you have to combine that with a deep understanding of your customers' problems. Who and what are you trying to solve for them? What value proposition is most compelling to them? What use cases meet their needs the most? And the more data you have on your customers, the more segmented the opportunities to appeal to them. And naturally, the more personalized your communications can be. So Gen AI, for the first time, is providing the tech to be able to create personalized marketing at scale with the tools to track conversion and attribution. There are so many new AI-based platforms that are coming online. I'm advising a company called ScrollMart that has a terrific solution in the MarTech and the FinTech space, and many more are going to be launched in the next couple of years. The key is for you to really understand your brand DNA, really understand your customers, and then define your goals. What objectives, what KPIs that you also have alignment from the executive team, the CEO. And once you define that, then you can find a partner. Go find companies that will be a good fit for your company and your goal, and then jump in there and test and learn with that company. That's the best advice I can give anybody.
Well, I think it's all about getting the basics right, isn't it? Understanding who you are and what you're trying to achieve
And
before
then
you
use
start
that
looking at.
technology. Then how does technology help you get there?
Yeah, exactly. Not the other way around. Don't let technology be the driver of all
Like,
those
oh, there's the
decisions.
technology. Let's just use it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which I think's an error, isn't it? So if you were looking to build loyalty, so let's think about this loyalty or this customer engagement. Let's not necessarily call it loyalty. Customer engagement, I think, is a better term. What role does language, culture play? And I know that, predominantly, not all the brands you've worked on, but predominantly the brands you've worked on have been very domestic focused. I think I'm right in saying. But within that, domestic's the US, I should say, for our international listeners. But within that, there is different cultures, different languages that you speak. The US has many different languages. How do you kind of make sure that is still relevant and resonates to different audiences?
Yeah. So again, doing your homework, understanding, your brand, and then importantly, understanding how important is the diverse market to your company's bottom line, right? how important is these diverse markets in any segment, whether it's diverse or economical or
Well, it's interesting
generational.
there, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
interesting because I think you mentioned it earlier, that relationship with the finance team to help you work
yeah,
out some of those things. You don't have to. I often think marketers can get into that trap of, oh, I've got to do it all myself. I'm like, no, the finance team are your
no,
friends here. They can help you model stuff. They can help think about it. They can look at your segments and say, here's how you might be able to think about what revenue you can get from them. Is that
it's
your
important.
experience?
It's critical. Without that, you're not going to get anywhere because you can do a lot of work. But if the financial team doesn't believe it's impacting the bottom line positively, then you're just kind of wasting your time. And so it's again, so align in this case, the diverse market to making your quarterly profit goals. And so once you have that alignment, that this particular segment, in other words, a diverse segment, is actually important to the company being able to deliver its bottom line goals, its quarterly profit goals, then that will, and to what degree, then that will set the baseline on how strongly you make your case for investing and mining that segment. And you get the commitment from the CEO, the executive team, the board that you should go after that market aggressively and the way you do that is to find expert partners that will help you reach that segment and move them to become, to become customers where they choose, or your product, your service is their product or service of choice. So that's so important because otherwise it's like, there are limited resources, limited budgets. And so you have to make sure every effort, every dollar is spent that will deliver a strong return.
That's excellent advice. I think there's so many directions you can take things in, and you really have to sort of do the analysis side of, well, what's going to make a difference to the bottom line, and that translates, pardon the pun, but that translates going to other markets like international markets. What different markets are profitable? I know, not necessarily did that at Fresh Market, but in any business you can look at it in the same way. You can say, well, we could go to that market, but what's the cost of us doing it versus the return we're going to get out of that market? What are the milestones? And then get the buy-in from all the senior, the board members, the executive team to kind of drive that through. Lovely. I think it's great advice, Kevin. Anyway, right. So next question is our kind of mid-show point, and we sort of call it the inbox confession. It's a light-hearted bit, so you can relax a touch here. But what's the, I'm not gonna test your brain too much, I hope, on this one. But what's the one thing you wish you could have automated to have made your work day easier in your career?
Like everything.
Everything's a good answer. So you'd be surprised what people say. Lots of people say almost everything.
So again, I think the key would be the financial performance of the marketing efforts. So there's no question in terms of when it comes to budget cutting time, because things are a little tough. Then the first thing that gets cut are the marketing budgets, the media budgets. And so if you have a continual conversation during your weekly executive team meetings and your quarterly board meetings where you can demonstrate and show the impact of your marketing efforts, your media spend on achieving the sales goals and the bottom line goals, then you take a lot of the angst out of and doubt out of what you're doing. And you get investment in terms of more people, more resources, and you don't have to try to create that story right before every meeting.
Yeah. It's there. It's just there at your fingertips.
And then you can invest in what's working and cut back on what's not.
So that's an interesting point, I think. And some of that is tough decisions that you have to make. And you've led intense transformations in the companies you've worked for. So often with that, we talk about numbers, talk about growth, but there's a people element to this, isn't there? So how do you keep people motivated when the stakes are really high, that you're really, because I think sometimes the executive team have their own kind of agendas that you need to pass that down to the team, or at least to motivate them. How did you kind of keep the teams that weren't necessarily in those conversations at board level or executive level motivated and interested?
I think the key is, most companies, organizations have really, really good people, really, really smart people that are in marketing. They want to do a very good job. They're creative, they're innovative. They want to create and see results and see it in the trades and see it on the TV and see it on their website. So, you got a bunch of really motivated people that are very smart, that come from great schools and great backgrounds. So, your opportunity is to lead that organization by communicating what the big goal is. So whether that big goal is to win, and whatever win is defined for the company, or to be the best at what you're doing, whether it's social or e-com or advertising, or to do something that no one else has done before. Well, those are the types of things that the team really, marketing people really get excited about. And then to inspire that team on an individual basis to communicate and make sure they understand what they as an individual can do to become a major part in achieving that big goal. And then to give them the tools and the resources to allow them to go out there and give it a shot and to fail and succeed. And if you can do that and you can buy into it, but it's like having that theme out there. For us at the Fresh Market, it was about, becoming one of America's most loved brands. And a year later, after we went from worst to first, so the year before, the Fresh Market had been rated the worst company in America to work for by,
My
by
God. There's no tough challenge there then.
yeah, by Glassdoor, and so that's
Yeah.
that's pretty bad. Not the worst grocery chain, but the entire world, the entire America, we were the worst company to work for. And then we had this audacious, big idea, big goal of becoming America's most loved brand. And a year later, we were voted in the USA Today poll as America's best supermarket.
Amazing. And so all of those things coming together, I guess, isn't it? It's leadership, it's understanding what you want to be, understanding your customers, understanding what they want, launching programs that does that. It's all seemed to have come together for you in that respect.
Yeah, we had some terrific leaders. We had a tremendous CEO. The board bought into it. Our teams were fantastic, and we had a great vision of what we wanted to become. And then we did the homework around it, and we really focused on the customer, and we measured, and we adjusted, and again, the DNA. Think about the DNA of the Fresh Market. It's the place where you go to get, your fresh food, with impeccable service and a shopping experience that makes everyday eating extraordinary. We didn't try to be everything to everybody.
Yeah, yeah. You knew exactly what you wanted to do.
Right. Place to get your fresh food, the place you go to for special occasions when everything has to be absolutely positively perfect for your relatives and your family and, your graduations. And then to solve what's for dinner. What's for dinner tonight? That vexing question that the entire world agonizes about every day, no matter what country you're in, at 2 or 3 o'clock. It's like mom's like, damn, I got what's for dinner tonight.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because I mean, that's an amazing phrase you've just come up with, but I bet that it comes out of the customer research of what kind of things are people thinking. You didn't just think that up as a thing. That's research coming out and telling you this is a problem everyone thinks about every day.
How do you make products easier, easy to prepare, easy to cook, easy to clean up, and that are affordable?
So just moving it out of sort of the specifics of Fresh Market and thinking about your roles in marketing and being CMO, what is the toughest part from your point of view that doesn't really get talked about today as a CMO? And it's changing a lot, I think, the CMO role. But just from your experience, what's the toughest part?
Again, I hate to sound like a broken record, but it's the ability to continue to, the ability to quantify the impact of marketing to the bottom line. I mean, business operates on a bottom line basis. There are a lot of activities, a lot of things you can do, but it ultimately gets down to, are you more profitable this quarter than last quarter, this year than last year? Are you trending as a growth company? Because basically that's where you're in business, to grow. And so you got to be able to, so you really have to be able to show a direct line causal impact of marketing spend on higher margin and higher market share.
And I think if anyone's trying to help a CMO, I mean, I completely agree. I think it's the bottom line is always the thing that, as you go in your marketing career, there's lots of little bits that you bring in, and you think about clever ad campaigns or clever lines that you come up with and things like that. But ultimately, as you go up in your career, I think you get more and more into the business, and you get more and more. And in the end, it comes down to conversations like, well, how is your team impacting the bottom line? And I think if anyone was going to come to me, I don't know if you agree with this, but if anyone was going to come to me with a proposition, I'd be like, yeah, okay, so how can this help me hit those numbers or that bottom line or our growth targets? And I think that's advice that anyone talking to a CMO should probably have in their back pocket as soon as they do. So, and what about bridging gaps between departments? What's your experience of that? Because it sounds like, if the CEO's giving you the mandate, that trickles down, and that's great to have the CEO's buy-in. But how have you kind of taken that to other teams within organizations, getting everybody unified? Around one strategy, I guess.
So the strategy comes from the top, comes from the CEO, and our ability to amplify and expand on that strategy within the different functional areas is very important. In most cases, marketing, helps to serve the other departments, the operational department, the merchandising department, even the finance department. And so it's the ability to sit down with each one of your executive team department heads and understand what their goals are, what their individual goals are. And we did that as a team at the Fresh Market. Everyone was very clear in terms of what their goals were and how they laddered up to the ultimate goals for the company. And then work together in terms of aligning our efforts with the other, team members, and then being able to communicate back to your team, not just what our marketing department goals are, but what the operations and the financial teams and the merchandising teams were, so that they could also work with their counterparts to achieve each other's goals. And when you, without crossing the lines and trying to do the other job for them, while also having mutual respect on how these things work together. So if they understood that marketing wasn't just trying to spend money to make cool ads and get likes and clicks, but really this all created new customers, new business, new bottom line impact, then you get a lot of support cross-functionally, and the team wins. So team wins are more important than individual wins.
Yeah, 100%. So for any CMOs and heads of experience or chief customer officers or other departments, what's the mind shift that they need to make in terms of loyalty, personalization, especially, in the context of what we do, which is, helping brands scale their content into different markets. Localization technology, language technology is what we do. But what's your kind of, if you're thinking internationally, what would you sort of say that your advice to those teams are to kind of them in terms of what they need to think about?
Well, mind shift now, and well, let's just take internationally. So internationally, the Coca-Cola brand, the McDonald's brand, the Disney brand, it all stands for the same thing no matter what country you're in. So the key is to really understand your brand DNA, promise, your differentiation, and then understand the country or the area that you operate in, understand that customer, and then translate, your brand DNA, your brand promise, differentiation culturally by engaging in the local community and translating your brand to show how, it's helping the local community and local customers move forward. So partnerships with local food banks, community groups, youth programs, all those things, the local vendors, feature your employees, tell your brand story in a culturally relevant way. But, the value prop is for your brand it really doesn't change across borders.
No, and I think that's interesting, isn't it? It's that consistency of it across the borders, so that you're not telling a different brand story or a different company story in a different market. And that's what people need to think about. What's a common mistake that you've seen that companies make when they try to build engagement with customers across different audiences. Let's just say it doesn't have to be international, but diverse audiences.
They stray from their brand, and they give too much. You can give too much autonomy to local teams, local marketing teams, and everyone wants to put their own spin on things. And so if you don't manage and maintain the brand integrity, then you can pretty quickly get off track.
I think that's good. You do need some kind of central way of keeping everybody on the same message in the same way.
Even when you expand even within the U.S. So if you have we're building, the Fresh Market is building more stores. So when they go from they're into a new market or into a new state, how do you create the culture that is important, clearly important in terms of the experience in a new store in a new state if no one in that store has ever worked at the Fresh Market before? How can they possibly, communicate that feeling, that experience, the connection, the love, if you've never experienced it before? So it's so important to take those assets with you through the people that engage with the customers on their front line or wherever they engage with them, so that you are truly and authentically communicating what makes your brand special and different and wonderful for customers. It's so important.
So just on a practical level, what did you do to do that with people, with the teams that you
We
were
took
setting up?
managers that were managers and key people from other stores, and that's who opened the new stores. So we don't do that. We make sure that we bring folks that are ingrained in the culture and are high performers, so that when our customers first engage with us, they're getting the best of what the Fresh Market is about, not the worst.
Yeah, so it doesn't have to reinvent itself. You just take that and put it there. Oh, great. Love it. Okay, so look, we're coming towards the end. And I was just going to ask you one last question before we get into a minor quick fire round. If you could give your younger self one piece of advice on marketing or leadership, what would that actually be?
I would say someone told me many years ago, you had to fish deep while the others sleep. And what that basically means is work really hard, understand your business better than anyone else, and, strive for insights and ideas that aren't evident, because most people don't work that hard. So work harder and fish deeper. And then to build cross-functional bridges, as we were talking earlier. You got to win as a team, bring others along with you, and follow the bottom line. So
Love it. That's four pieces of advice.
I sound like a broken record, but those are the
That's good.
things that really work.
I love it. That's actually 4 pieces of advice for the price of
Yeah.
one, which is obviously a great discount. So look, just a couple of quick fire questions on the last thing. Global growth in one word. How would you, or just growth in one word? How would you describe it?
It's inevitable. So you either grow or you die, right? Ray Kroc, the founder of McDonald, says, when you're green, you're growing. When you're ripe, you're rot. So if you don't grow, you're out of business. The competition will put you out of business. You'll turn into Blockbuster, Toys R Us, Bed Bath & Beyond. You got to grow.
And then one habit that's kept you steady throughout your career that you'd say worked for you?
Yeah. The most important thing is, and then AI can't do this for you, is you got to talk to frontline employees. The employees that are at the front line who are delivering the service to your customers, they know what's going on in business more than the CEO. That's where the ideas are. That's where the customer knowledge is. Talk to frontline employees, and that will really, really help you as you pursue your career.
And then last question before I let you go. Is there one other leader you think that we should talk to on this podcast?
Yeah, there's a terrific guy. His name is Tony Wells.
Tony Wells, yeah.
And he's a multiple board director, several boards. He's in venture capital a little bit, but he spent a long time being a CMO for companies, brand officer, I think, for USAA, chief media officer for Verizon. And he can give you that board perspective and also the CMO brand and media. He's a really terrific guy.
Great. Well, Tony will be receiving a call from us very shortly. But look, Kevin, what an entertaining discussion. What a fantastic career you've had. Wish you all the best for the future, and just thanks again for unloading your knowledge to the audience for our podcast. So thanks again, and speak to you soon.
It was my pleasure, Jason. Thank you.
Well, that's it for another episode of In Other Words, a podcast from Phrase. I've been your host, Jason Hemingway, and a massive thank you to Kevin Miller for sharing his insights on what it takes to keep customer experiences authentic and grow businesses, even as AI and global ambitions come into play. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to In Other Words on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite podcast platform. You can also find more conversations on leadership growth and what it really takes to scale globally at phrase.com. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next time.